10. Introductions and Conclusions. Sarah Kim, Douglas Marshall, June Pulliam, Victoria Vanist, and James Jurgen. Chapter Overview. 10. Introductions and Conclusions. 10.1. Learning Objectives and Key Terms. 10.2. Introductions. 10.3. Conclusions. 10.1. Learning Objectives and Key Terms. Identify key elements of an effective introduction. List methods of grabbing the audience's attention. Identify key elements of an effective conclusion. Tension getter. Break light. Character competence. Credibility. Note of finality. Preview. Summary. Thesis. Learning Objectives. Key Terms. 10.2. Introductions. The very first words you use when starting a speech create a first impression for the audience that either encourages them to listen or tune out. While this is usually a short part of your presentation, it is important to take your time developing the introduction because you are creating a first impression of yourself and the topic. The introduction sets the tone for the speech, and it lets the audience know what to expect and what type of information they will receive. There are 4 important tasks that must be accomplished during the first few minutes of a speech. You must: 1. Capture the audience's attention and give them a reason to listen. 2. Self-introduce and establish your credibility or ethos. 3. Reveal the topic of the speech through a clear thesis and relate it to the audience. 4. Preview the body of the speech by specifically outlining the main points you will cover. Capture the audience's attention. Audience members do not attend a presentation with the intention of losing interest or being bored to tears. Truth be told, audience members do not give a speaker a terribly long time to win them over either. You may only have several sentences and possibly a chance to actually introduce the topic of the speech before the audience mentally votes, "Yes, I want to listen further," or "No, I'm tuning out and thinking about lunch." If there is nothing in the speech that connects to the audience or gives them a reason to listen, then it is easy to decide not to listen. This opening statement is known as an attention getter. This is your opportunity to capture the audience's attention, but also help them to understand how this speech relates to them. Depending on the overall time limit of a presentation, an ideal introduction should last no more than 30 seconds to 1 minute, and this includes your thesis and preview of your main points. This seems like a long time, but in truth, it is not. Hence, you have a short yet precious window to lure your audience and hope to keep them there. Here are top attention-gaining strategies to try in your upcoming speeches. Ask a question. Ask insightful, meaningful questions. Better yet, ask a series of questions designed to draw the audience further and further into your speech. When you ask your audience a question, they must think. In the process of thinking, they are paying attention. Ideally, your question should be rhetorical. You don't want the audience to answer out loud. That can be distracting from your planned introduction and can interfere with the timing of the speech. Asking a rhetorical question allows the audience to connect to your topic. If they raise their hands or agree with you, then this topic is important to them. If they don't connect, they want to know what they are missing. Asking a question draws the audience into your topic and makes it important to them. How many of you would categorize yourselves as givers? How many of you search for the perfect Christmas or birthday gift each year for your best friend or perhaps your mom? You go all out, right? Then, how many of you have signed up to be an organ donor? Isn't that the ultimate gift? The gift of life? Find a quotation. It could be a historical quote, a humorous one, even a song lyric. Ensure you credit the originator of the quote. Ensure the quote is relevant to your topic. If you use a quote, it should be impactful and cause your audience to want to hear more. When used effectively, the quote is relatively short and directly related to the topic. Make sure you have finished speaking before your audience has finished listening. Dorothy Sarnoff. Courage is being scared to death but saddling up anyway. John Wayne. Use a startling statistic. Use a startling statistic or a shocking statement. For every topic, there is a statistic that the audience doesn't know or is meaningful. Audiences tend to remember startling information even after the speech ends, and it helps to get their attention. Finding a statistic that also connects the audience to the topic can be very impactful. Make sure you correctly cite your source when you state the statistic. According to HIV.gov, 34,800 new HIV infections occurred in 2019. While we don't hear much about this disease anymore, it continues to disproportionately affect people in the South. According to the FBI, statistics show that 1 in every 4 women will be assaulted in her lifetime. As I look around this room, that means that 5 of us will be victims of assault. Is that you? Reference a recent event. Reference a local event, place, or activity. Use a recent news story, tragedy, or occurrence that your audience would be sure to recall. An event can make your topic more meaningful to the audience because it demonstrates that your topic is happening right now, that this topic matters. There is always something going on, whether it's Hispanic Heritage Month or a recent news story that you can connect your topic to and help the audience to know this topic matters to them. I'm sure all of you will recall the news story a few months back in which a car went over the Buckman Bridge, sideswiped by a drunk drive, as stated on the ABC news station KVUE. Today, I want to discuss how you can be a defensive driver and hopefully save yourself from becoming the next headline. Tell a story, engage us, draw us in, and make the details of the story vivid and real to us. When I was 4 years old, I became separated from my parents while visiting the zoo. One minute they were there, the next they were gone. While you might imagine that I was frightened, I wasn't. I continued to look at the snakes in each display, fascinated. I tagged along with other visitors following the same path, staring in awe at each new exhibit. I certainly didn't realize then what we all know now: how dangerous the world can be for a child alone. If you ever listened to a scary story told by a camp counselor at night when all were sitting near a campfire, you know the power of a good story. Plan to tell your audience a story, and you will have them listening as attentively to you as campers listen to a counselor's scary story. Use vivid details. Paint a mental picture in the minds of your listeners. You want them to relate, to smell the cookies baking, to see the tears in your grandmother's eyes, to feel the softness of a baby in your arms. Make sure the story is short and directly related to the topic. The introduction is short and designed to move the audience into the body of the speech. If you have a longer story, that might be a main point. Sometimes a story can be too personal or difficult to tell as a speaker, in which case you could use a personal reference instead. Rather than telling the whole story, it is just as meaningful to share your connection. According to the FBI statistics, 1 in 4 women will be a victim of assault in their lifetimes. I was a victim of assault due to an unfortunate and scary choice in a romantic relationship. While the story might be hard to share, even stating the connection from the speaker to the topic can be just as impactful. Use humor. If the topic is funny, then start with a funny story or a humorous admission of your own to connect the topic to the audience. Not every topic is serious or designed to save the world. Some topics are lighthearted and funny, and the introduction should be funny as well. It is important to remember the audience, however. Not every humorous story is appropriate for every audience. In a classroom setting, you would want to ensure your humor was academically appropriate, and at work, your humor would need to be work appropriate. Note that humor does not work for every speaker. If you are not originally a funny person or unconfident of using humor in your speech, it might be safer to avoid humor. Find a compelling visual aid. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Find a poignant, shocking, funny, or charming picture to get your audience's attention. For example, a photo of a homeless child. A picture of a crystal-clear lake and mountain range. Cartoon depicting a political news story. Self-introduce and establish your credibility. An audience may or may not have a preconceived notion about you when you stand before them, but your audience will make up its mind about you quickly. Humans are notoriously quick to judge and often form a first impression about a date, a stranger, or a speaker within the first 30 seconds. It becomes imperative, then, for you to introduce yourself and establish your credibility after you have grabbed the audience's attention. While some in your audience will form a first impression of you based upon your outfit or your smile, most will judge your credibility based upon 2 crucial factors: your perceived competence and character. Competence ensures your audience that you know your subject well. You have a strong knowledge base and you are well prepared to share the topic with your listeners. Reveal your expertise in the introduction so your audience knows from the beginning that you can be trusted. If you have a special relationship to the topic, either personal or professional or by association, the beginning of your presentation is the time to share that. If you do not have in-depth knowledge of the topic, it's time to hit the books, access the internet, or talk with the experts. You have the ability to become a minor expert on most any topic by doing some research. Then ensure that your audience knows of your research. They want to know that your information is valid. A second component of credibility comes from the audience's assessment of your character. Can you be trusted? Do you have their best interests at heart? Will the information you provide be useful and relevant to their lives, or do you have your own agenda? This aspect of credibility is often referred to as ethos, the Greek word for character. A great example is the stereotype of a used car salesman. You need a car, but you are not sure which one is right for you and which one you can really afford. The salesman knows all the necessary information about the vehicle's gas consumption, mileage, and accessories. But you just do not trust that he has your best interest at heart. Is he trying to get rid of a particular car or make more commission? Is the car you are being shown best for you or best for the salesman? While you feel confident of the salesperson's competence, you are doubtful of his/her character. It is important that you show your audience that you are credible in both areas. Some of the different ways to get the audience's attention can also be used to establish your credibility. If you told a story of how this topic happened to you, or you ask a rhetorical question and then state that you have or do whatever the question was about, can help to get our attention and establish credibility. How many people in here have ever watched an important person in your life suffer through an illness? I watched my sister struggle with breast cancer, and today I will be explaining what breast cancer is. Sometimes you might not have a personal connection to the topic, where your research will be important to demonstrate that you are knowledgeable. Ever since my grandfather gave me a telescope, I have been fascinated by the stars. This has become a topic that I research and read about every chance I get. Whatever topic you choose to present in your speeches, it is important that you have some connection to that topic. You have to be credible to speak on a topic in order for the audience to believe you. It would be unfair to ask the audience to do something that you don't do or have no connection to. Reveal the topic of the speech through a thesis statement and preview the body of the speech after you grab your audience's attention, and before you reach the actual body of the speech, you will reveal your thesis statement. Remember, a thesis statement is a singular thought that tells the audience what the speech is about. It should be a strong, single, declarative sentence that captures the main point of your presentation. For example, if you are giving an informative speech on how to properly use a fire extinguisher, your thesis may be, "Knowing how to operate a fire extinguisher by following 4 simple steps can be beneficial and potentially life-saving," or "Using a fire extinguisher can be accomplished by following 4 simple steps." A preview statement is also an important component of your introduction. While many people attempt to combine the thesis and preview statement, it is more thorough to include them as separate, distinct items. Preview statement is usually the last sentence of the introduction. Preview is like giving your audience a map for a car trip. They will have an overview of where you will be taking them. It will be easier for them to pay attention as you present your information, and it will help them retain the main points of your presentation. Using the same topic as used above, a preview statement might sound like, "Today we will cover 4 specific steps that you should follow when using a fire extinguisher. I will explain the PASS acronym of pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep in my speech," or perhaps it will be spoken this way. "In our time today, we will discuss how to properly use a fire extinguisher. You should pull the pin, aim the nozzle, squeeze the trigger, and use a sweeping motion when using a fire extinguisher in an emergency situation." Notice that in each case, the speaker laid out the roadmap for what was going to be presented during the presentation. The audience had a framework to fill in when the supporting material was presented. To prepare yourself, review the main points you intend to cover and write one sentence that previews each of those points, separated by commas. You can also write 3 shorter sentences and use periods. Beware of going into the details reserved for the main body of the speech while previewing your topic. This will confuse the audience, and they will wonder what else you plan to discuss. Remember, the introduction is short and your goal is to move the audience into the body of the speech. 10.3. Conclusions. You have riveted your audience with an engaging introduction. Your introduction led to a compellingly written and logically organized speech. Now it is time to wrap up the entire experience, but how? Do not make the mistake of thinking, "Well, my speech is just about over at this point, so it doesn't matter how I end it." You need a conclusion just as dynamic and memorable as your speech opener. How do you feel when a movie has a disappointing ending that does not wrap up the story, or worse, simply leaves you hanging? You feel frustrated, quite possibly like you wasted your money and time. Your audience will feel the same way if your closing remarks do not provide effective closure for your speech. Too many speakers do not realize that when a speech fizzles out, the audience is left with a negative impression. Your speech introduction and body may have included the most profound words known to man, but it could be said that a speaker is only as strong as his last sentence. You want your final sentences to be ones that are remembered and valued. Conclusion is the last opportunity to share anything with the audience. You don't want to waste those valuable seconds. What a speech conclusion is meant to do. The speech conclusion has 4 basic missions. 1. Wraps things up. This portion is often referred to as a brake light. Much like brake lights on a car warn us the car will be stopping, this brake light or transitional statement warns the audience that the speech is ending. 2. Summarizes. A solid conclusion briefly restates the preview statement in past tense to remind the audience of the main points that were covered in the presentation. 3. Tells the audience where to go from here. Depending on the purpose of your presentation, this component may play different roles. If your goal was to inform the audience, this is where you might tell them of a rich source they can go to for more information if their curiosity was piqued. If your goal is to persuade, this spot serves as a great opportunity to challenge the audience to take action based on the goals of your speech. Tell them what you want them to do now that they heard your speech. 4. Closes the speech. The note of finality, clincher, closing statement, or whatever you want to call it is an important element that leaves the audience reflecting on the topic. Wrapping things up, it says, "We are nearing the end." Hopefully, your audience will want you to speak for an hour rather than just 5 or 8 minutes. However, when you transition into your conclusion and use appropriate signposting, your audience realizes that the speech will come full circle. Usually, the first transitional phrase is a brake light of sorts. It lets the audience know that you are starting to wrap up your presentation. You may use a transitional statement to illustrate this, such as, in conclusion, in summary, or to wrap things up. The summary, TT, tells the audience, here's what I told you. Just as you used a mapping statement to preview your main points, now you will summarize your points within your conclusion. Simply reword or even restate your original thesis statement or preview statement in the past tense will effectively summarize your speech. While this will feel very repetitive to you as a speaker, it is useful in helping the audience understand and retain the information you covered. While you may be tempted to revisit all the details of your speech, this element is best served by a clear, concise declarative sentence that restates the main points you addressed. Your conclusion for the fire extinguisher speech might begin with wrapping up and a summary for the audience. In conclusion, I have explained how to safely use a fire extinguisher. We have talked about the past system of pulling the pin, aiming the nozzle, squeezing the trigger, and sweeping the fire. Where to go from here, it says, here's what to do now. Conclusion is the last chance you have to speak to the audience about this topic. Depending on your general purpose, this portion of the speech will vary. Informative speaking often creates an interest in the audience to learn more about your topic. It's best to give the audience a good resource to check out if they want to learn more information. Avoid telling the audience to Google it. We all know how to do that. Since you've done the research, tell us the best one you found. An example is, if you'd like to learn more about the history of Stillwater, I recommend visiting the Shearer Museum at 702 South Duncan here in Stillwater. Persuasive presentation conclusions want to utilize the last opportunity to challenge the listeners to action. Conclusion in a persuasive speech is where the call to action or advocacy is provided and is what makes your speech truly persuasive. This portion gives you a specific opportunity to tell them what you hope they do as a result of hearing your speech. You may say something like, as you leave here today, I challenge you to pick up 5 pieces of trash as you walk back to your dorm or car. Note of finality. It lets the audience know the speech is over. Your speech conclusion is a mental takeaway for the audience, and you will want a strong note of finality. Your conclusion should contain enough memorable words and phrases that will help the audience positively recall the experience, and even recollect certain points that you made. Do not forget to include that ta-da moment. The last statement of your presentation should be thoroughly planned to let the audience know you are done. You want your final statement to leave a strong, lasting impact. It should leave the audience reflecting on your topic and your information. Some speechwriters like to reference the attention getter as a nice way to bring the speech full circle by revisiting a story, question, or video clip they used originally to grab the audience's attention. After your closing statement and applause from the audience, you are of course welcome to thank them for their attention and/or attendance. To complete our fire extinguisher speech, we might end strong by saying, "While a fire can be a scary event, having the knowledge to put it out can make all the difference for loss of property or even lives." Putting it all together, the introduction and conclusion are the last part of creating your speech, but they should receive the same attention as the body of your speech. This is the opportunity to get the audience's attention and draw them in and to leave them something to think about. Your introduction and conclusion should be thought of as bookends to the speech, holding up the body and all the important information the speech is sharing. Bookends are similar but not exactly the same. When creating your introduction and conclusion, you are setting the tone for the speech. How do you want the audience to feel about this topic? Choose an introduction that creates that feel. If the speech is scary, use a quote or startling statistic. If the speech is fun, use humor or a recent event. When you conclude, you want to bring the speech full circle back to where the speech started. If you used humor in the introduction, you want to leave the audience with a laugh. If the speech was scary, you want to help them find more information. Everything in a speech is planned, and the introduction and conclusion help to make the speech memorable and interesting to the audience.